The Virginia Horse Industry Board, Southwest Virginia Agricultural Association, and the Virginia Christmas Tree Growers Association are proud sponsors of Virginia farming.
This program's brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Large or small, Virginia farmers work year-round to help put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding off-road ATVs, led by the rugged, more powerful Sportsman 850 HO. Hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the Sportsman ATV you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family, Life, Auto, Business, Farm. Jim Gray, farmer son, agribusiness owner, insurance agent. Another personal story on farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know.
Hi everybody, welcome to Virginia Farming. I'm Amy Rocher. This week we're going out in the field to find out about alpacas when we visit Augusta Alpacas on Ag Insights. Then we'll talk about preventing ice and snow damage when we go in the garden. Plus we'll have the Ag Calendar and a Minute in Field video. All this plus the Ag News of the Week on this edition of Virginia Farming. USDA's chief economist says U.S. crop production should increase in 2013, and that could lead to lower prices for farmers. The USDA's Bob Ellison has more.
U.S. Department of Agriculture Chief Economist Joe Glauber told the annual Agricultural Outlook Forum held near Washington, D.C., that record production for some crops is a possibility this year.
We're expecting record crops for corn and soybeans this year. Again, dramatic improvement, particularly for corn. Remember last year, between our May estimate, our May projections and what we ended up with at the end of the year, we lost 4 billion bushels. We're expecting to rebound on that, up about that amount this year. We've seen the East Corn Belt look a lot better than what we saw just 4 or 5 months ago. As a percent of total area in drought, we've seen some improvement, 5 to 10% improvement over the last couple of months.
But Glauber says with record production, there could be a significant fall in many commodity prices.
We're projecting corn prices, season average prices, below $5. Again, a big drop certainly from where we are. Wheat prices to come down a bit as well. Soybeans down. Some improvement for rice and cotton, actually, and that's largely due to the domestic balance sheets that should tighten up a bit.
Glauber did bring up the lingering drought, which he says his office will be watching very carefully for its effect on yields.
However, I do think that at least the empirical data suggests a return to more normal yields as we move into spring. And with better rains and a return to more normal weather, we will hopefully get some higher yields.
In Washington, D.C., for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I'm Bob Ellison.
Thank you, Bob. Well, by the looks of the drought monitor, if crop production does indeed go up this year, a lot of it will have to be in the eastern region of the U.S. The Climate Prediction Center shows drought persisting throughout most of the Midwest and western regions, with some improvement around the Great Lakes and into Nebraska. Now, as for Virginia, we are looking pretty good. The abnormally dry area shown here was from data collected on March 5th. And I have a feeling that the large amount of precipitation we received last week will change it back to normal in the next drought report. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Agricultural Statistics Service has sent out a survey to tens of thousands of growers about their 2013 planting intentions. The results of this survey will help all participants in the agriculture sector determine what to expect this growing season after a drought-hampered 2012 season. In addition to grain growers, NASS will also survey thousands of pork producers about their hog and pig inventories and spring farrowing intentions. As with all of its surveys, NASS keeps all individual responses confidential. The published reports will include only national and state aggregate data, ensuring that no individual operations can be identified. Well, it seems that the Environmental Protection Agency did not keep some of its farm data confidential. The National Pork Producers Council is extremely troubled by the EPA's February release to several activist groups of personal information on U.S. hog farmers and on other livestock and poultry farmers, and possibly business confidential data on their farms. Now, the National Pork Producers Council is reviewing the files that the EPA released to better understand the scope and content of the data. Former NPPC President R.C. Hunt said what's ironic is that in the name of transparency, the EPA released information in secret and violated the privacy rights of farmers across the country. Well, sharing information in the cattle business has never been more important or more rewarding. Cindy Campbell reports on what information each segment of the beef business once passed along to them.
Everyone loves a good story, especially if it's one with a happy ending.
All sectors of the industry, it doesn't matter whether you're buying feeder cattle or beef, they want more information attached to that product that will allow them to make good decisions regarding their purchasing.
The kind of story buyers want depends on the market sector, Belk says, and it grows as a product moves from farm to fork.
Feeders want to know what was the health management background of these cows before they buy them. But retailers want to know, okay, where were they produced? Were they produced with good animal well-being practices? And so they want information attached to them, and you can see that as you move along the production chain, the amount of information that needs to be attached to them actually increases.
Cattle feeder Kenny Knight expects cattle to arrive at his Lyons, Kansas yard with documentation he can pass on to the next buyer.
Our goal has always been to get as close to the end user as possible with a product that's either branded or certainly where they know where their meat is coming from. And if we've got a paper trail all the way through, not only on the source and the age, but on the vaccinations, I think that's important to the consumer. And if it's important to the consumer, it's important to us.
For cattlemen, the first reward comes from supplying those details, so buyers will pay an information premium. Belk says the next chapter should include more than the basics.
If we start adding to that then things like how were the cattle treated, when were they treated, did they meet withdrawal times, those sorts of things, that's going to continue to add value to that. So those ranchers that can take advantage of systems that allow them to add that kind of information to the identity of their cattle will reap the benefit of them being able to tell the story of their beef.
That's a tale ranchers, feedlot managers, packers, and consumers can all enjoy. I'm Cindy Campbell.
Thank you, Cindy. Well, this is a story about alpacas. The number of alpacas in Virginia is growing, and we'll visit Augusta Alpacas to learn more about this farming trend. That's straight ahead on Ag Insights. Alpaca farming is a growing trend in Virginia, and we're here to find out why. I'm joined today by Patty Gray with Augusta Alpacas in Mount Solon. Patty, welcome to Virginia Farming.
Thank you. We want to talk about your alpaca farm.
Great.
What made you decide to start an alpaca farm?
Well, we had a little bit of land, not much, and so we started researching what we could do that would be, help us without having to mow. And with smaller kids, animals, they love animals. So once we started researching, it was something that we felt we could have an income with and some tax advantages and not have something that we'd have to slaughter as an end product.
How many do you have in your herd?
We have 15 right now.
Okay. Did you start with a smaller number? Have you grown them over time?
Right, yes. We started with 3 bred females and then 2 males. And that was our 5 to start with. And then the next year, they had their crias, and we just added on, and we've sold some, but we wanted to keep some and sell some. So
the fibers that you get now, is that the main income from
there's more income from still selling the animals to other breeders or people that want to expand their herds or get different genetics in their herds, but the industry is definitely that's the future of it. Fiber is definitely the future of the alpaca industry, I would think.
So on the money end, Can you make enough money with the fiber to pay for keeping the animals?
You can almost, if you do it aggressively, you almost can. We're not at that point because I'm trying to get some inventory, built up. But you really could. I know farms that do that, and that pretty much takes care of the expenses for the year, and then their animal sales just add on top of that.
I know there's probably a lot of our viewers out there who are looking to start their own alpaca farm. What's your advice for them?
Well, definitely do your research. It depends on your situation. They definitely have advantages that were the same advantages for us, is you don't need a lot of land. You can have, depending on your pasture, 6 to 10 alpacas per acre. And they don't, they eat less than my dogs do. So their care is very easy. So it's easy for people that maybe haven't had livestock before, but the state of Virginia still considers them as livestock. So you get tax advantages as far as expenses and things like that. But you definitely have to research your situation and see if it's a fit for you. But if you want something that's really easy to handle, that you don't have to slaughter for an income and that type of thing, it was just a really good fit for us. And then even then the tax advantages, everybody's situation's a little bit different. So you really need to research that with a tax person that can give you that advice.
Going to what they eat, what do they eat and how much do they eat?
Right. They eat daily probably about 1 to 2% of their body weight. The adults weigh 150 to, under that. So we can feed an alpaca for around, like $13 a month probably, if I would break it down.
And
that's like orchard grass hay. We give them free choice free choice minerals, and then there is a pellet that we give them that's about 14% protein and that type of thing. Some people during the summer, if they test their pasture and their hay, then they might not give the pellets, because if they're getting the nutrients they need. We're so small, it's easier for us. I feed them less in the summer, but that way I know that they're getting what they need.
Some general information about alpacas, their gestation times, when do you breed, what is their lifespan? Tell me a little bit about alpacas in general.
Well, we like to spring breed because it's about 340 days. So it's a lot like a horse, about 11 and a half months. And so a lot of people will breed a female. You're going to pay more for that female, but you're kind of getting a head start that way. And then some people don't want to keep a lot of males, but if you really want to make a name to have animals to sell, you should look into the show circuit, which we have never done. We kind of knew that going in just with our kids and activities and both working full time. This was just kind of, something extra. But you get more into your high dollar animals and people are looking for your certain genetics. But just research. Now's really a good time to get into the industry. Just with the economy, with everything, prices have came down on everything. So it's a good time for farms that already have alpacas to get different genetics in their herd and maybe make their herd better. Or it's a good time to start because the prices are down. I don't see them going down a whole lot more. I actually see them once everything settles out and the economy getting better. I think the fiber is getting more and more popular, and it's going to continue to keep its value. Fiber has not went down in value, the animals have, but we still need a lot more animals in the country to make the fiber, the future. So there's still breeding opportunities out there.
So is there a great demand for the fiber?
It's getting more and more, and there's been more organizations, co-ops, and that type of thing that are organizing better now that the animal numbers are up. They didn't start coming into the country till the 80s, so now that there's more and more quantity of animals in the United States, they actually have more fiber that they can, make a viable product on the world market with. So it's getting there, but we still need more animals out there producing fiber.
With the fiber, now you shear once a year.
Yes.
When you shear, tell me what's the process then? What do you do with the fiber? What happens to that fiber?
Right. Well, we have a couple different options, and I do a little bit of both. There's different parts of the animal and different grades of the fiber on the animal. So the blanket or the barrel of the animal is your best fiber, and that's what's used to make you know, blankets and sweaters and that type of thing. And then there's like their legs and their necks. It isn't as good, but you can make things with that too. So there's a co-op in New England that we work with a lot, in which I will skirt the fiber. In other words, pick out any shortcuts or, you know, straw matter or hay matter that may be, and then get all that out. And then that goes directly to them. We don't wash it or anything. And then they give us a credit towards their products that they make with that fiber. And then we have those products for open houses and things like that. And we're trying to go after it more aggressively this year. We're going to be on Etsy, and we're going to have a website to sell our products. So that's one option. The National Foundation of AOBA, they also have a co-op that we will send some fiber to. And with that, depending on their profit for that year, then you get credits back through that. There's also people that come and want just the raw fiber so that they can, you know, wash it and hand spin it themselves. There's a good cottage industry for that in our area. So there's lots of different options with the fiber. We don't actually spin any of ourselves. I don't know how to do that, but maybe someday when I retire. Yeah, so
if you ever retire.
Yeah, if I ever retire, yeah. But so there's several different options. You know, you can sell the raw, you can have it made into yarn, you can send it to a co-op. There's various things you can do with it.
Okay, so there's a couple different baskets here and a table full of products. Let's talk about these.
Well, this is right off of the animal. This is the blanket or the prime fleece that's best. It's the softest and the finest. And then once you skirt this and wash it and all, that can be made into roving, which is here. And this is ready to spin either commercially or, you know, with hand spinners.
Okay, so that gets spun into the yarn.
Yes.
Which can be used to make virtually anything. And then here we have a whole table full of products. Socks and more yarn and scarves. And all of this, the scarves and the softer things, are made from the
blanket or what's around their back and belly.
Okay.
That's the softest fiber. Yep.
All right. Now I see a trivet over here, and then we have a bag.
Yes, and all of that can be made from their neck fiber or their legs, which is called their secondary or their thirds fiber. It's graded differently, but you can use all of their fiber for something.
Okay. Now, the stuffed animals I see here, this looks a little different than the others. Can you explain that?
Yes, this is, there's two different types of alpacas. This is a Surrey, which is much more silky, and as you can see, the wind blows it like in locks. This is the Waiaka, which is more like the teddy bear look alpaca, which is the type of alpacas that we have. And their fiber can be used, you know, for the same things. It's just two different types.
Okay. And something else that you mentioned, it's very similar to properties in wool in that it wicks moisture from the skin.
Right. There is no lanolin though. So people that might have allergy problems with wearing wool can wear this with no problems. And it's just a finer, but it is stronger too. So it lasts a little bit longer as far as that goes.
Well, Patty, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Come back anytime.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. There are a lot of ways to help prevent ice and snow damage, from what you plant to where you plant it. Let's join Mark Viette in the garden.
There are a couple things that we can do to help alleviate ice and snow damage. You know, sometimes we can wrap our plants with burlap, and that's not my #1 way. But what you can do is from the onset, when you're picking certain types of plants, some plants have the ability to resist breakage. A great example would be the New Bradford pears, which really don't have lots of branches, but they have less branches and the branches are much more sturdier and they don't break as easy. The other thing you might consider is not plant all your plants really close together. One of the things that you notice in this garden here, we've really tried out spacing the plants as opposed to putting them all together. And what you notice is the sun, when the plant has a lot of sun from around it, the branches are really nice and sturdy, like this yew. You know, occasionally we get that once every 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, 50-year ice storm, and some branches on some of the other yews will bend to the ground and they might even break. Now, remember, some plants are real resilient. You know, you might see them weeping to the ground, and then the next day when the ice melts, they grow back up, and some of those plants might be fine. If everything you've done has failed and you still have a lot of ice and snow on the tree, you know, I see people going out and walking out and shaking their boxwood and some of their other evergreens with the snow. It might even be a Bradford pear still with leaves. It's important to be as safe conscious as possible. And you can get these shoes that go right over your shoes, and they have spikes, and there's many different types of these. And it will help you. It's not a foolproof way, but they might help you from slipping on the ice that's around the base of your boxwood trees and so forth. As you see here, we have really thinned out our boxwood tree, and this really is a tree. As you see, it's quite large. We don't do this every year, but what you want to do is create branches like this that are really strong, that won't really, you know, pull out of the tree and break. And by doing simple pruning methods like reaching in and pruning whole branches like this, you allow the light to get in the center of your plant, and you allow growth to occur inside, which helps strengthen this shrub from ice damage. If you have some plants that really need to be wrapped, occasionally people will come right in with burlap, and they will tie maybe 1 or 2 swats of burlap around their shrubs to help prevent them from breaking. These are just some things you can do. But thinning out some of the branches is the ideal and best way. And you only need to do this occasionally every couple years, and it will allow your plant to resist a lot of the elements of nature. These major ice storms don't happen every year. So we're not, at least we hope they don't, we're not always thinking about what we can do to help our plants. Some of the things that you can do, especially on some of your larger trees, is just go in and tip back the branches. Now when I mean tip, that's just taking a little tip, maybe the last year's growth. The ideal time to do this is sometime in June, and that prevents the branches from extending real far out, and so it just reduces the overall weight. The other thing that you might consider is do a little bit of thinning. So if you need a few greens for decorating, just, you know, come in. This is a branch that had been damaged, as you see here, but by thinning out some of the branches, you thin out some of the overall area that can capture ice or snow. It is real important to remember that ice and snow on trees is extremely heavy, especially if you start getting 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. You don't want to go out and shake these trees. You don't even want to be under your trees. Sometimes I've heard forests that explode with the weight of the ice as the branches break and crack, and they can weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds. In some cases, your tree can just split into 2. So always keep in mind, safety is very important. But you can just go through your garden, thin out some of your trees, don't plant your trees too close, and that will alleviate some of the ice and snow damage we sometimes see. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
Taking a look at our ag calendar, the White Top Mountain Maple Festival will be held March 23rd and 24th at Mount Rogers School in Grayson County. You can see maple syrup making and sugar houses. There'll be food, traditional local music, and all kinds of family fun. You can visit the web address on your screen for more information. The Great American Trail Horse Sale and Competition will be held at the Anderson Coliseum in Lexington April 5th and 6th. This unique event is for all breeds and features seminars, demonstrations, and various competitions. You can find out more information at greatamericantrailhorsesale.com. That does it for our show this week. Have a great week, everyone. I'm Amy Rocher for Virginia Farming.
This program's brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. From apples to zucchini, Virginia farmers work hard to put food on your table. And Farm Bureau works year-round to help farmers and all Virginians. Farming, it's all good. To learn more, go to vafarmbureau.org.
Polaris, offering its hardest working, smoothest riding full-size workhorses, including the all-new 60-horsepower Ranger XP 900, hunt, farm, or trail. Polaris has the full-size Ranger you want at Polaris.com.
Brought to you by Farm Family. Life, auto, business, farm. Nancy Asher, stable owner, visionary, agent of change. Another personal story on farmfamilypeople.com. Farm Family, the people you know.